Imagine I told you that there are places in the world where people regularly reach the age of 100, and their secret is not found in expensive supplements or cutting-edge medical treatments. The truth is surprisingly simple. For generations, people there have just been repeating very ordinary daily habits, quietly nourishing both body and spirit, and now modern science is confirming that these rhythms of life may add decades to one's journey. It sounds unbelievable, but when we step away from the glare of the laboratory lights and return to everyday life, we see that longevity is not a sudden miracle. It is the result of small, steady choices, repeated day after day. Today, we will dive into the blue zones regions where people do not just live longer, but live better. These are not magical tricks to memorize, nor harsh regimes to endure, but rather a new way of looking at each moment of your life. How you wake up, how you move, how you connect, how you pause to breathe. The most beautiful part is that you can begin weaving these principles of longevity into your own life today, no matter your age. Think of this introduction as an invitation to open the door, to step outside, and to try one small change in your day. Because if longevity is a long piece of music, then each steady note you choose today becomes the melody that will carry you far. 1. Natural physical activity. If you have ever thought of exercise as a task to be scheduled on a calendar, you may be surprised to learn that in the longest living communities on Earth, movement is not a box to be checked, but the natural rhythm of life itself. Picture a morning in Sardinia. A shepherd climbs rocky slopes to reach his flock, his feet as familiar with the incline as his heart is with its own beat. In Okinawa, an elderly hand tends a row of vegetables, bending down, standing up, turning gently, as though stretching a stiff joint. In Nicoya, the path to visit a neighbor takes a few extra turns, but shortens the weight of loneliness. There, people move constantly without having to try, while in cities, we often sit so much that a workout at the gym becomes just an attempt to compensate for hours of stillness. That contrast matters more than we realize. Studies of the blue zone suggest that extraordinary longevity, like the average lifespan of Okinawans, which ranges from 84 to 87 years, is linked not to bursts of intense activity, but to light, steady movement, like a stream of water slowly wearing away the stone of a sedentary lifestyle. What is striking is that these places rarely have modern gyms, and that turns out to be an advantage. The environment itself provides countless small nudges throughout the day. Walking because you need to, gardening because you must eat, working by hand because there is no machine to do it for you. Climbing hills in Sardinia is not a cardio session, it is the way home. A garden in Okinawa is not a calorie-burning tool, but a source of nourishment for body and spirit alike. When movement arises from genuine needs, the body is spared the short-lived bursts of enthusiasm that so often end in injury or burnout. Recent meta-analyses show that simply replacing 30 minutes of sitting each day with light activity reduces overall mortality risk by about 14 to 20%, and this benefit is independent of whether you engage in strenuous workouts or not. In other words, avoiding stillness matters more than chasing intensity. The benefits ripple through nearly every system in the body. The heart is supported as blood pressure drops a few points, good cholesterol rises, vessels stay more supple, and daily steps are linked with a risk of heart disease up to 1/3 lower, as seen in Icaria, where the elderly still walk briskly to gatherings. Joints and spine are naturally lubricated when we regularly bend, stand, turn, and step across uneven terrain, a gentle therapy that reduces stiffness and keeps muscles and bones functioning smoothly over time. Even blood sugar and chronic inflammation shift for the better when light movement increases insulin sensitivity and triggers anti-inflammatory signals, all while preserving muscle mass, the fortress that guards against age-related decline. Many prospective studies, from classic datasets to modern cohorts, point in the same direction. A 20-minute daily walk already creates a meaningful difference in mortality risk, and the benefits accumulate with consistency. By contrast, sporadic bursts of intense training may spike cortisol and leave behind unseen wear and tear. The secret is not iron willpower, but the way the environment is shaped. In the blue zones, stairs replace elevators, walking paths replace steering wheels, and handcraft replaces buttons. We can recreate the same today, with the simplest of choices. Park a few blocks farther away, and treat the walk into the store as a dose for your circulation. Plant a small garden, or keep pots of herbs, so you must bend, reach, and turn several times each day. Walk to the market, or visit neighbors nearby. Take the stairs whenever possible, and slow down with household tasks, like sweeping or washing dishes, turning the kitchen into a hidden gym. Let 7 to 10,000 steps appear as the natural byproduct of living, not as a pressured goal. When plant-based meals fuel you gently and walks with family and friends add lasting motivation, you will see that movement becomes normal again. If needed, a step counter app or a simple habit journal can remind you how far you have come without turning movement into a burden. Of course, everyone faces obstacles, long commutes, limited green spaces, or aching joints. In those moments, stand and stretch for a few minutes between tasks, join a local walking group, suggest a wellness program at work, or start with chair exercises under therapeutic guidance if necessary. Do not wait for perfect conditions to begin. In the world's longest living communities, people do one very simple thing. They keep moving, a little, again and again. It is this gentle persistence, compounded day after day, that extends not only the length of life, but the depth of health itself. 2. Having a purpose in life. Some mornings, the hardest part is not the ache in your knee, or the stiffness in your back, but the quiet question in your chest. What am I waking up for today? In Okinawa, they call the answer ikigai, a reason to open your eyes at dawn. In Nicoya, it is plan de vida, a life plan rooted deeply in community and nature. What stands out is that purpose, in the longest living regions, is not about grand ambitions or framed titles on a wall. It is the joy and meaning that blossom from ordinary acts. A garden bed that needs watering, a grandchild who needs help with homework, a clay pot that asks for patient hands. Research in the blue zones shows that the vast majority of centenarians there, up to 95%, carry a clear sense of purpose, like a cloak against modern loneliness and a buffer that strengthens resilience in the face of life's storms. Even when framed through a Western lens, where purpose is often tied to career, recent data still shows that 9 out of 10 elders in these regions see purpose as the core driving force of life, filling the existential gaps that in cities so easily give way to depression. Why can a single reason to live change the body itself? The path from meaning to biology is not abstract. When you have something to look forward to, someone to serve, stress levels fall like a tide going out. Analyses in the United States reveal that those with a strong sense of purpose have a significantly lower risk of death over years of follow-up, and the physiological markers tell the same story. Cortisol lowered by 10 to 15%, immune function sharpened, chronic inflammation pushed back, removing fuel from the fire of disease. In the brain, purpose acts like a daily set of light weights for your neural networks, telling stories, volunteering, sharing wisdom. All of these spark new pathways. The long-term projects of everyday life build up cognitive reserve, which large-scale estimates show can cut the risk of dementia and memory loss dramatically. When you have a why, healthy habits stop feeling forced. Recent intervention data shows that people with high purpose sustain physical activity much better over time, creating a reinforcing cycle with the natural movement we discussed earlier. Even deeper, reviews on aging have found a link between purpose and a slower biological clock at the level of DNA. Telomeres, those protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, erode more slowly. This translates into lower risks of stroke, significantly reduced odds of dementia, and greater preservation of independence. And this pattern is not a cultural accident. It repeats across communities, from elderly tracked in long-term studies to neighbors living together in longevity villages. So how do you rekindle that flame in the rush of modern life? Begin with a small dialogue with yourself. What makes you feel useful, needed? Write down a few lines each day, not to find a perfect answer, but to notice the seeds already there. Tending a patch of soil, teaching one skill to someone younger, lending a hand in your neighborhood. Place them on your calendar, like opening a window to let in light. A weekly volunteer shift, an hour of mentoring, or a shared garden where hands work together and hearts find belonging. Lean on social circles to sustain the rhythm. Close-knit groups like Okinawa's Moai, or family activities that anchor purpose in everyday life. Start small. 10 minutes of reflection each day is enough to create a new trajectory, then listen to your energy and mood to adjust. And if you feel adrift, a therapist or life coach can help untangle the threads and name the values waiting to be lived. Of course, there are times when city noise or the pause of retirement makes you feel unmoored. In those moments, kind online communities, hobby clubs, or mentoring programs, whether planting trees for the environment or guiding a younger person, can step in where religious spaces might once have been. The point is not to discover one great truth in a single day, but to water a small meaning steadily across many days. Purpose does not fall from the sky, it grows from what we repeat. And sometimes, all it takes is knowing that someone or something is waiting for you, a garden, a child, a circle of friends. That alone is enough for the heart to find its rhythm and keep beating strong. 3. Daily stress management. There is a silent saboteur of longevity that we often overlook: chronic stress. Have you noticed those afternoons when your heart races for no clear reason, when your mind spins at night like a restless wheel, when you sleep but wake up as if you never rested? That is not just a feeling. When stress lingers, the body releases more cortisol, as if someone turned the engine throttle to high and left it there. Over time, a slow fire of chronic inflammation smolders, blood pressure creeps upward, the protective caps called telomeres on your DNA wear down faster, and the aging process accelerates by the equivalent of years, even a decade. From there, the door to heart disease, diabetes, and dementia opens wider than we realize. What makes the difference in the world's longevity zones is that people do not wait until their bodies break down to repair them. They soothe their nervous systems every single day, like brushing their hair in the mirror. Gentle, simple, but effective. In Sardinia, quiet afternoon prayers act like a soft brake pressed on the parasympathetic nervous system, shifting the body out of high alert and into recovery. In Icaria, the short nap after lunch is like a cool cloth laid over an overheated machine, lowering the temperature of both heart and mind, restoring alertness without disturbing the night's rest. In Okinawa, the ritual of brewing tea and remembering ancestors is more than tradition. It is a deliberate pause, where breathing slows, shoulders drop, and inflammatory pathways are extinguished. Science follows to confirm what tradition already knows. Regular meditation, or prayer, can lower cortisol significantly and reduce inflammatory markers like CRP in just a few minutes each day. A nap of about 20 minutes is linked to a markedly lower risk of heart disease. Warm, moderate gatherings with wine or tea buffer loneliness and soothe anxiety factors as deadly as many bad habits. The key lesson is not in a catalog of techniques, but in making relaxation a way of life. In Icaria, the midday nap is a natural part of the day, not a luxury. In Okinawa, tea rituals and ancestral remembrance are scheduled into life the way we schedule meetings. As a result, their baseline cortisol levels are lower than those in cities, and the spiral of stress, insomnia, and fatigue is stopped at the first step. When the body learns to shift into slow gear each day, blood pressure stabilizes, the immune system calms, and the brain finds time to clean up and consolidate memory. These are the small bricks that build both long life and healthy years. If you live in a crowded schedule and a noisy home, this might sound impossible, but the secret of the blue zones is to start small and repeat consistently. Give yourself 10 to 20 minutes at a set time each day to meditate, pray, or breathe deeply with a count. If you need guidance, apps like Headspace or Calm can serve as gentle crutches at the beginning. After lunch, allow yourself a short nap of about 20 minutes, setting an alarm so you do not oversleep and so your circadian rhythm stays steady. Each week, plan one social landing with friends or family, a simple dinner, a glass of wine, or a pot of tea for non-drinkers to connect, soothe the nervous system, and replenish what busy days take away. Track your mood and energy in a small notebook to see where you are improving and where to adjust, and if stress persists, do not hesitate to reach out to a professional to walk alongside your daily habits. Of course, there will be days when you cannot find a quiet corner, or when work pulls you away. In those moments, 5 minutes of slow breathing by a window is as valuable as a full meditation session. A small wellness program at work or an online gathering with friends can be enough to remind your body of recovery mode. What matters is not how perfect the ritual looks, but how consistent you are. Every time you choose to tap the brakes instead of pressing the gas, you save a day and invest in your future. And the accumulation of those ordinary days, quiet, unpretentious, is exactly how people in the world's longest living regions extend both the length and the quality of their lives. 4. The 80% rule. Do you remember the last time you pushed your plate away and said, "That is enough," before feeling completely full? In Okinawa, they practice this every single day with a simple reminder: Harahachi-bu, stop eating when you are about 80% full. It sounds simple, but it is a world apart from the common habit of eating until you cannot take another bite. The body has a delay of about 20 minutes between when the stomach sends its signal and when the brain actually registers fullness, influenced by messengers like leptin and ghrelin. If you wait until 100%, you have usually already overshot. But when you stop at 80%, you give your brain time to catch up, naturally reducing calorie intake by 10 to 30% without really feeling hungry. The Okinawans pair this habit with a plant-heavy diet, sweet potatoes, soy, vegetables, so the stomach fills with fiber and nutrients rather than empty calories. The benefits go far beyond the scale. When food intake is reduced moderately and consistently, body weight drifts toward a safer range, lowering risks tied to excess fat from blood sugar disorders to diabetes. Fewer calories also mean less metabolic exhaust. Oxidative stress quiets down, chronic inflammation cools, and cells avoid the wear and tear of running like an engine in overdrive. On the metabolic front, insulin sensitivity improves, blood sugar stabilizes, and lipid profiles shift in a direction that protects the heart. Intervention studies in adults show that cutting just 10 to 15% of usual calorie intake can already slow biological age markers, as though the body's internal clock agrees to tick a little slower each day. On a deeper level, modest reduction activates protective pathways like sirtuins and AMPK, enhancing autophagy and DNA repair, the very mechanisms targeted by intermittent fasting, but in a gentler, more sustainable form. The bigger picture becomes clearer when looking at accumulated evidence. In the lab, calorie restriction extends lifespan across species. In real life, the traditional Okinawan diet of earlier decades was 10 to 30% lower in calories than the global average, yet rich in nutrients, and it correlated with lower rates of heart disease and cancer. Recent reviews strengthen the case. Moderate restriction reduces inflammation and improves cardiovascular markers. But there is also a boundary to respect. Taken to extremes, restriction can cause micronutrient deficiencies, especially in those who are underweight or dealing with chronic illness. That is why the 80% rule is not a harsh diet, but the art of stopping at the right moment. How can you apply it without turning meals into a battle of willpower? Start with pace, chew slowly, put your utensils down midway through the meal, and ask yourself, am I already almost satisfied? Give your brain a few minutes to listen. Use smaller plates so your eyes do not trick your appetite. Fill your plate with vegetables, beans, and whole grains so fullness arrives early without excess calories. Record your satiety after each meal in a short journal, just a note like, almost full, full, or too full, and watch how it connects with weight, energy levels, and sleep quality, so you can adjust. If you are older, losing weight quickly, or have health conditions, talk to your doctor to ensure your diet still meets your nutritional needs. The greatest obstacles are often not knowledge but context, lively social meals, hyperpalatable processed foods, buffets that beckon. In those cases, pre-portioning your meal locks in your decision early, eating with friends who also practice mindful habits, helps maintain rhythm, and a simple tracking app can act as a rearview mirror, letting you observe your patterns without becoming obsessed with numbers. Most important is moving step by step. Harahachi-bu does not ask you to become someone else. It only invites you to set your chopsticks down a few bites earlier, to listen to your body one breath longer, and to give your heart, your blood vessels, and your cells the chance to live lighter for many more years. 5. Plant-based eat. If there is one quiet measure that determines longevity, it sits right on the plate in front of you. In the world's longest living regions, meals are overwhelmingly plant-based, 90 to 95%, and this is not a passing trend but a foundation repeated over generations. Fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, and whole grains fill the table. Animal products play only a supporting role, appearing in moderation on special occasions. Okinawans are accustomed to savory soybean dishes. Sardinians treat lentil soup as the warmth of family. Look closely, and you will see a simple logic. The more plants you eat, the less your body has to battle inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic chaos. And it is this biological piece that sustains longevity. Why plants? Because each bite brings fiber that steadies blood sugar, antioxidants like polyphenols and flavonoids that extinguish sparks of inflammation, vitamin C, E, and K, and minerals like potassium and magnesium that keep the heartbeat supple, all while saturated fat remains low. When meals center on these foods, the risk of heart disease falls significantly, cancer moves along a gentler path, and telomere caps at the ends of DNA are preserved, according to recent evidence. It is no coincidence that many centenarians in the blue zones derive 50 to 65% of their energy from slow carbohydrates like beans and grains. Meat, when present, is more a celebration than a daily habit. Within this picture, beans are the cornerstone. Just half a cup of soybeans in a meal, as Okinawans often do, provides protein, fiber, and micronutrients, and steadies blood sugar for 4 to 6 hours, slashing diabetes risk according to new analyses. Soluble fiber nourishes the gut microbiome, the foundation of immune function, keeping the body's defenses alert but not overactive. Alongside beans are whole grains, barley, oats, brown rice. They supply prebiotics, lower cholesterol, reduce colorectal cancer risk in pooled data, and deliver a steady flow of energy to the brain through the gut-brain axis, sustaining clarity for hours. When meals tilt toward plants and stop at the right time, the body shifts into a conservation mode that slows wear and tear. Moderate energy reduction, especially when paired with hara hachi bu, the 80% rule, does more than move weight into a safer zone. It activates expressways of protection, sirtuins and AMPK pathways that repair DNA, autophagy that clears out worn-out cells. Biological clocks slow down slightly in adult trials. It is not magic, but a pattern repeated across data. Less inflammation, smoother metabolism, more flexible blood vessels. And what about meat? Its role in longevity zones is clear: little, but enough. Occasionally, a small portion, just a few ounces, appears during the month, bringing vitamin B12, iron, and zinc to support muscle and bone without driving the body into the inflammatory track of daily consumption. Overall, meat contributes only about 5% of total calories, a ratio that lets animal foods support health without dictating it. If you want to begin today, do not turn your kitchen into a laboratory. Picture your plate as a small garden, half filled with colorful vegetables, 1/4 with beans or lentils, and the rest with whole grains. Sprinkle nuts or seeds for healthy fats and satiety. Keep meat modest, and if you are fully plant-based, monitor B12, iron, and zinc through regular checks to stay balanced. Nutrition tracking tools can serve as mirrors, guiding your choices without making meals feel like math. Combine this habit with hara hachi bu, setting your utensils down when just satisfied, and you will feel your body grow lighter week by week. Of course, changing taste or cooking habits does not happen overnight. The first resistance often comes from the tongue and the clock. In those moments, start with the familiar: a warm bowl of lentil soup, a batch of beans prepared to last through several meals, and gradually expand with approachable plant-based recipes. If gluten sensitivity or bloating makes beans difficult, diversify your options, soak them, and introduce them step by step so the body adapts. What we need is not a diet manifesto, but a steady path. Add more plants, reduce meat, stop at the right time, repeat long enough for both lifespan and health span to bloom together. 6. Moderate wine drinking. On the sunny hillsides of Sardinia, or in the quiet villages of Icaria, a glass of homemade wine with dinner is not indulgence. It is a bridge between the heart and the community. They sip slowly, they talk long, and they treat it as a gentle ritual to wind down after a day's work. What stands out is the moderation, usually just 1 to 2 glasses, low-alcohol wines, rich in plant compounds, like cannonau. Look closely at the science, and the picture is seamless. polyphenols in red wine from resveratrol to quercetin to catechin help combat oxidative stress, reduce cellular damage, and support healthier cholesterol and blood pressure levels. Resveratrol in grape skins even activates sirtuins, proteins linked to DNA repair and metabolic regulation, echoing the protective effects of moderate calorie restriction described in the 80% rule. But chemistry alone does not explain longevity. The benefits of wine in these regions appear in a very specific context, consumed with meals, in the presence of loved ones, when the body is already in landing mode. These social rituals can lower cortisol, calm the nervous system, ease sleep, and balance mood. In Sardinia, wine at 5 is not about getting drunk, it is about connection. And it is the connection itself measured in hugs, laughter, and stories that plays as big a role in longevity as diet or movement. That is why a resveratrol supplement taken in isolation cannot replicate the blue zone's effect. What is missing is the human element. Still, the line between benefit and harm is as thin as a thread. Moderation is precise. 1 5-ounce glass for women, up to 2 for men, consumed slowly with food. Beyond that 3 or more glasses a day, the risks outweigh the gains. Liver damage, higher blood pressure, disrupted sleep, impaired memory and mental health, even higher risk of cancer and cardiovascular events. Recent reviews even question whether any safe threshold truly exists, suggesting that the observed benefits may be partly due to the healthier lifestyles of moderate drinkers. Even so, real-world evidence from blue zones shows that when red wine is part of a plant-based meal, shared among friends, health outcomes tend to improve as long as discipline in quantity remains intact. Culture is part of the recipe. In Sardinia, Cannonau grapes produce wine with moderate alcohol but high polyphenol content. In Icaria, homemade wine is shared in lively dinners where time seems to slow down. Wine there is a warm companion to food, not an escape from reality, a social glue, not a ladder that lifts emotions only to abandon the body in fatigue. If you want to adopt this ritual in the spirit of the blue zones, begin with quality and context. Choose honest red wine, low alcohol, cleanly made, and drink it with a plant-based dinner, ideally in the late afternoon or early evening to align with circadian rhythms. Sip slowly, in conversation. If you do not drink or should not, because of liver conditions, pregnancy, history of dependence, or medications that interact, preserve the ritual with red grape juice, pomegranate juice, or herbal teas rich in polyphenols. The treasure does not lie in the alcohol, but in the consistency of a relaxing moment shared with others. Listen to your body, track your blood pressure, your sleep, your mood over several weeks. If even one glass leaves you foggy or restless, stop. If your doctor advises against alcohol due to health or medications, that is a boundary to respect. In the longevity regions, discipline walks hand in hand with joy. The glass of wine is simply background music for meals and friendships. And like every other longevity habit, what makes the difference is not one special evening, but a small choice repeated with intelligence, kindness, and consistency. 7. Belonging to a faith community. Have you ever stepped into a room full of people, a small church, a modest community hall, or even a neighbor's kitchen and felt your heartbeat slow down? The greetings, the handshakes, the quiet prayer before a meal, all of it wrapping around your nervous system like a warm coat, reminding your body that you are not alone. In Loma Linda, Seventh-day Adventists reserve the weekend for faith and family. In Icaria, Orthodox rituals are woven into village feasts. In Okinawa, ancestral remembrance is part of daily life. The names differ, but the thread is the same. They belong to a community of faith. And what is striking is that this sense of belonging does not just shelter the soul. It can add years of healthy life. In multiple analyses, regular participation has been linked to the equivalent of 4 to more than 10 additional years of well-being. This longevity advantage is not some vague miracle. When you show up in a faith community about once a week, the body learns how to downshift. Cortisol retreats, blood pressure softens, and the heart is less battered by everyday storms. Shared lifestyle frameworks, less smoking, little alcohol, meals tilted toward plants, as Adventists practice, become natural guardrails against chronic disease. Equally vital is the spiritual lifeline, hope, meaning, and a habit of reaching beyond the self-brightened mood, reducing depression and despair. In a world where loneliness is compared to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, a warm pew in church or a meditation circle can be one of the most potent prescriptions we often overlook. You can see it clearly in everyday stories. An elderly woman in Icaria said she attends services not because she is more devout than others, but because that is where someone asks if my legs hurt less today. That small question, repeated week after week, holds up both body and spirit. In Loma Linda, Bible studies paired with garden-grown meals create a rhythm, prayer, healthy eating, conversation. In Okinawa, a home altar to ancestors reminds children and grandchildren of their roots, sustaining a sense of continuity across time. When you feel yourself as a link in a long chain, the mind is less unsettled by uncertainty. If you are hesitant about religion, the message is not believe as they do, but belong as they do. Large-scale studies show that the protective effect is not confined to any single faith. What matters is regular participation in a community with shared rituals, cross-generational support, and values that encourage self-care. For those without religion, mindfulness groups, humanist circles, ethical clubs, or service-oriented communities can recreate the same mechanisms. Stress relief, social safety nets, encouragement of healthy living. In person or online, both work as long as you genuinely engage, allowing others to see you, and letting yourself see them. How do you begin when your schedule already feels crowded? Choose the easiest doorway: a weekly gathering, an evening online circle, or a shared meal around a meaningful theme. Do not overload expectations. Simply repeating 4 times a month is enough to start weaving back the social web that protects health. Then take a small next step: join a learning group, volunteer an hour for a community project, invite a few people over for a Sunday dinner. Before bed, jot down a few lines about your mood, blood pressure, and sleep quality, not to scrutinize, but to notice how your body responds when anchored in a community. Barriers will appear: shyness when entering a new space, old wounds tied to childhood religion, or simply lack of time. When that happens, begin with a welcoming group, ask carefully about their values, and allow yourself to create personal rituals if needed: a minute of gratitude before meals, a weekly round of calls to old friends. The essence is not dogma, but connection and meaning. In the longevity zones, faith provides the frame, the painting is made by people. And sometimes, to live longer, all you need is a seat reserved every weekend, a space someone has saved just for you. 8. Putting family first. There are mornings when everything seems to run on schedule. You drink a cup of coffee, open your inbox, reply to a few messages, then rush through dinner in front of a screen. Everything looks fine until you suddenly realize it has been a long time since you laughed at an old story. A long time since someone held your hand and did not let go too quickly. In the longest living communities, that moment of emptiness rarely lingers, because family is always at the center. Not as a vague idea, but as a living structure. Generations close by, grandparents helping raise grandchildren, meals filled with names and stories. When that rhythm repeats, emotions are mended, chores are shared, and the purpose of the elderly is lifted back up, day after day. Science has a name for what the heart already knows. Family connection triggers oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which pushes cortisol down, softens pain, and strengthens resilience. Hugs and intimate conversations can significantly lower the risk of depression and sharpen immune response. For older adults, the role of caring for or guiding grandchildren not only warms an afternoon but also keeps the body moving, the mind active, and, according to long-term studies, adds several years of healthy life. The opposite is also true. Loneliness is ranked alongside the heaviest health risks. For the elderly, feeling cut off from community can raise mortality risk far beyond what we expect. That is why, when a grandfather tells war stories to his grandchild, it is not only a history lesson for the child, but also a subtle form of rehabilitation therapy for him. The benefits ripple through the entire family. Living with or near relatives helps older adults feel less lonely, a difference that carries real medical weight. And when they have something to do each day, from teaching a lesson to reminding a child to see a doctor, mortality rates fall sharply in population studies. Children who grow up in their grandparents' care often regulate emotions better, learn more steadily, and resist social pressures more strongly. For the whole family, living nearby is both an economic and emotional strategy. Childcare costs are shared, sudden crises find support, and mental health improves across generations. The course of chronic disease in the elderly also slows when there are shared tasks, shared meals, and shared responsibilities. You can see this clearly in Blue Zone life. In Nicoya, many families live in clusters of nearby homes. Lunch brings all generations together, chores are divided, and everyone has a role. In Okinawa, grandparents teach grandchildren traditional crafts, one stitch, one knot, passing ikigai from one generation to the next. This is not simply convenience, it is an emotional medicine that shields against the isolation of city life, where each apartment can become an island. In modern life, putting family first is not always easy. Homes are small, work schedules are tight, relationships sometimes strained. That is why the Blue Zone approach begins with small, steady changes. One family meal a week. One evening of storytelling or games. 1 hour of video calls with distant relatives. If possible, consider living closer, an in-law suite, a co-living arrangement so visits are natural, not forced. Caregiving should be shared, so no one burns out. Set gentle boundaries like 2 hours with the grandchildren each day, so love does not turn into burden. And if distance cannot be closed, a family chat group, a weekly call, or a Sunday storytime schedule can still keep the thread unbroken. Obstacles will come: geography, generational differences, old scars. In those moments, seek a mediator to help heal, or expand the definition of family to chosen family, close friends who can offer the same circle of care. What matters is not a perfect portrait on the wall, but the steady rhythm of attention and presence. Today, you can start with something small: a message of care, an invitation to dinner, or simply placing your hand on someone else's and saying, "I am here." In a world that runs fast, choosing family is how we slow down time and stretch out life itself through love with a schedule. 9. Choosing positive friends. One afternoon you sit by the window, watching people flow past like water. Your phone holds hundreds of names, yet you do not know who to call. In Okinawa, they avoid that moment early in life with something called moai, lifelong circles of friends, usually 5 to 10 people, formed in childhood and carried all the way into old age. They meet to drink tea, to walk together, to share what has weighed heavy on the chest and what has just lifted off the shoulders. When one is sick, the others are hands and feet. When one is joyful, the joy ripples outward like circles on water. And it is those ripples, repeated over decades, that help shape Okinawa's average lifespan of 84 to 87 years, not through magic, but because the human body is designed to thrive when it is not alone. Moai works like a reserve fund for both mental and physical health. Regular meetups slowly erode the sense of isolation, a mortality risk far greater than we often admit. With a committed group, you learn how to stay upright in difficulty. Someone keeps you accountable, someone encourages you, someone reminds you to care for yourself as you do for others. No wonder surveys show that those with moai report far lower stress levels and better health outcomes than those living alone. On a micro level, every shared walk adds thousands of steps to heart health. Every plant-based meal cooked together helps blood sugar stay steady. Sometimes, a slow glass of wine with friends is the soft break the nervous system needs after a long day. What makes moai powerful is social contagion. Joy can ripple out through 3 degrees of friends. When one person in the circle is happier, the chance that you feel happier rises too, according to decades of data. Health behaviors spread no less. When one person quits smoking, their close friend is more likely to quit. When one person gains weight, the risk rises for the group. Friends are mirrors of the future. If those around you walk in the morning, eat beans and grains, sleep on time, and speak with kindness, those habits are likely to become yours not through willpower, but through social friction, aligned in the right direction. The opposite is true as well. A circle that is pessimistic, or too casual with liquor and fast food, can pull you off track with ease. So where do you begin in a busy city with fleeting connections? Think small but deep. Choose 4 to 6 friends who are leaning toward health, not perfect, just willing, and set a fixed schedule. Maybe Saturday afternoons for park walks, Wednesday nights for a simple dinner of lentil stew and dark bread, or Sunday mornings for video calls if distance is a barrier. Sit together and make one simple promise. Each person chooses one health goal, and the group becomes the escort team. One wants to sleep earlier, another wants to quit smoking, another wants to add vegetables to meals. Everyone checks in, reminds one another, celebrates the small steps. If someone in the circle keeps pulling you back into old habits, shift boundaries gently, reduce the meetups that tempt, increase the ones that nourish. Quality matters more than quantity. A small, strong circle beats a long list of casual contacts. There will be times when schedules clash, or people drift. Do not let go. Move meetings online. Swap a walk for a walk and talk by phone. Send a single daily question, "Are you okay today?" Keep a quick journal of mood, sleep, or steps, and notice after a few weeks how your body responds to having a group. And if you do not have one yet, step into an existing circle, a book club, a fitness class, a cooking group, and refine until you find those who move at your rhythm. The beauty of Moai is that it does not demand one big change forever. It invites many small changes, shared with others moving in the same direction. Today, it may be just a text inviting a friend for a walk. Next week, a simple dinner for 4. Next month, a promise to drop an old habit together. When the circle is strong enough, you realize that longevity is not only measured in years, but in how many times you hold hands through hard days and still return to the tea table the following week. 10. Big breakfast, small dinner. If there is one habit that touches both science and peaceful sleep, it is the way we time our meals with the body's circadian rhythm. Mornings and afternoons are full enough to fuel the day, while evenings are light and end early. Do you notice the irony? Many people skimp on breakfast and load most of their calories into a late dinner, while the body actually works most efficiently in the morning and early afternoon when cortisol is naturally higher to mobilize energy, and insulin sensitivity peaks to handle glucose. When dinner is too heavy, the clock genes are disturbed, blood sugar spikes, and melatonin is blocked, thinning out deep sleep. By contrast, when we shift calories toward the earlier part of the day, large studies on breakfast show that the body metabolizes better, circadian clocks in the liver, muscles, and fat tissue synchronize, and the risk of metabolic syndrome drops significantly. The longest living communities understand this in very practical ways. Okinawans start their day with nutrient-rich breakfasts like miso soup and sweet potatoes. Dinner is just a light vegetable broth, finished before 6 or 7 in the evening. In Nicoya, beans appear in the morning, making the evening meal naturally smaller. This habit pairs perfectly with harahachi-bu stopping at 80% full, so the body is nourished but not overburdened when it needs to rest. You can feel the benefits in just a few weeks. Eating light and early makes falling asleep easier. Deep sleep phases longer. Finishing dinner 3 to 4 hours before bed reduces reflux, bloating, and heaviness. The gut breathes better too. When evening is no longer a calorie battlefield, the microbiome has time to recover, easing indigestion and calming the colon. On the weight front, shifting calories earlier helps ghrelin, the hunger hormone, quiet down at night, while leptin, the satiety hormone, stays steadier, so late-night cravings for sweets naturally fade. Intervention trials show that the big breakfast, small dinner pattern brings superior weight loss compared with dinner, heavy eating, and in people with diabetes. Loading calories earlier lowers post-meal glucose spikes and improves long-term HbA1c. If you are thinking, "My evenings are packed with meetings," climb the steps gradually. Increase protein, fiber, and whole grains at breakfast and lunch: eggs, beans, oats, rye bread, vegetables, so they make up 40 to 50% of daily calories. Then, shrink dinner into soup, salad, or a simple vegetable and bean dish. Time dinner at least 3 to 4 hours before bed. If late hunger comes, a small handful of nuts can land the plane without spiking blood sugar. Pair this with a plant-centered diet, and you will find your energy more stable during the day and your nights lighter. Let a journal be your rearview mirror. Note hunger levels, sleep quality, weight, and let your body tell you what works. If you have hypoglycemia or a condition that requires evening calories, talk with your doctor to adjust the rhythm safely. The challenge is not only biology but culture. In many families, dinner is the main meal. In that case, Shift the social part to breakfast or lunch, a warm morning meal around the family table, or a midday gathering with close friends in the spirit of Moai, so the sense of community remains, while the body does not struggle to digest late at night. You do not need to change a lifetime in one day, just move the first brick, a real breakfast, a substantial lunch, a light and early dinner. Repeat it long enough, and you will discover something very simple that longevity communities have practiced for decades. Eat with the sun, sleep with the dark, and let your inner clock guide the length of your life. As we close this journey, we see that longevity is not a sudden miracle, but the result of small choices repeated every day. Natural movement instead of long hours sitting, meals centered on plants, with the wisdom of stopping at 80% full, mornings that are nourishing, evenings that are light, a modest glass of wine shared with friends, a community to lean on, a family to prioritize, a purpose to wake up for, and rituals of release that help the body land safely. You do not need to change a lifetime in a single night, just choose one thing to begin today, and stay consistent tomorrow. Because when you treat your circadian rhythm with kindness, your body will repay you with years that are healthier, sharper, and warmer. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to join us on the journey of living longer and living better. Thank you for watching until the end, and I will see you in the next video.